resilient and sustainable food systems. In Egypt, by 2030, due to climate change impacts, the Nile Delta is expected to lose up to a minimum of 30% of its food production, identified as one of the world's 3 extreme vulnerability hotspots. NWFE's food pillar projects were designed to address Egypt's climate change challenges and drive impactful development action. Considering Egypt's pivotal role in the Middle East and North Africa, the experience in Egypt is envisioned as a successful model for replication in emerging economies worldwide, accelerating the green transition and contributing to global sustainability and resilient food systems. I want to acknowledge the diverse perspectives of our panelists, each representing unique strengths, know-how, and inspiring implementation strategies. This diversity enriches our contribution to NWFE's food pillar and shapes the innovative solutions we seek for project implementation. Without further ado, let me introduce our esteemed panelists for today. It gives me great pleasure and honor to introduce you to Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, who has been our bold champion and visionary for the NWFE Egypt's country platform. Welcome, Your Excellency. I also have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Donald Brown, IFAD's Associate Vice President for Program Management Department, and also my boss to add. Welcome, Dr. Donald. Saeed Hussein Qadri, who's Director of the Resilience and Climate Action Department of the Islamic Development Bank, and he is also one of our partners under the food pillar, Islamic Development Bank. I'm also very pleased to welcome one of our also very close partners and friends, Ms. Kiran Berhane from the World Bank. She's the Regional Director for Sustainable Development in the Middle East and North Africa. And last but not least, I'm very pleased that we have with us today I have one other, Mr. Karim Abdel Mun'im, Public Policy and Sustainable Lead from PepsiCo Egypt. And very pleased to see our private sector partners here with us. And last but not least, I'm very pleased also to welcome you to another private sector champion in the sector, Mr. Mohammed El Demirdash, who is the CEO and co-founder of Ingazat for Clean Energy and Water. Welcome, panelists, and thank you for being here with us. So let me outline just very quickly, but I really want to get us to the panel. What we're trying to do here is really introduce everybody to the NWFE program and the Egypt's country platform, followed by a short video, and then we will transition straight away into the panel discussion. I'm going to have to be much tighter now on timing so that we can really get all the essentials covered with the time slot. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me now move to our first speaker. And here it again, as I said, gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Rania Al-Mashat. And she will, of course, take us through the concept of NWFE and what it really means for all of us. So, yes, please, or would you prefer to? Okay.
Thank you very much, Dina. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. Before I go over the concept of NWFE, I just want everybody to take a look at the UAE Declaration for the Finance Framework, as well as the MDB Joint Statement. And in both of these publications, you will see the two important words, just transition, and then country-led platforms. And this is extremely important that at this COP, everyone has recognized the importance of country-led platforms as a way to push national goals, but also mobilize and collate a collective effort. And this is what Egypt was very keen on showing early on when we were at Sharm el-Sheikh and ahead of Sharm el-Sheikh through two very important presidential initiatives, the Sharm el-Sheikh Guidebook for Just Financing, and I have that with me here, and I hope everybody takes a look at it online as well. But what this guidebook does is that it provides a definition of just financing. Climate and development come hand in hand, but also how can we ensure that countries' pathways when it comes to sustainability and development does not come in conflict with our climate objectives. That country ownership is at the heart of what is happening, so that our commitment is actually what's anchoring us and pushing us forward in terms of our different objectives. And then finally, the governance. Having proper governance when it comes to the financing, both at the national level and the international level. The other presidential initiative was putting together a country platform that reflects the objectives and the priority projects of the government. In terms of the Egypt's country strategy, the climate strategy 2050, this was launched ahead of COP. And I ask everyone to take a look at this strategy. The first part of it, each and every climate objective is linked to the SDGs. So again, a very practical way of showing how a government can link climate objectives with sustainability and development and SDGs. And then we put, priority projects across different sectors. The financing gap in these projects is quite sizable. Ahead of COP, we said, okay, we'll take a subset of priority projects, mitigation and adaptation, hence the energy pillar, and then the food and water pillars because of the adaptation part. And then we are going to create a platform that avails technical advisory, grant component, guarantees, concessional finance, a debt swap for climate action, and also all of this is to draw in private sector investment. So this is the philosophy of what the platform was about. Of course, just a year ahead before at Glasgow, the Just Energy Transition Platforms, which are known as the JETPs, were announced. South Africa at the time, and now we have Indonesia, Vietnam, and a few other countries. But we could not be a JETP country because we do not use coal. So I said, we're not using coal. We cannot have a JETP. Let's create our own country-led JETP. And this is where the Nexus of Water, Food and Energy, or the NWFE platform, comes into effect. Another important aspect of NWFE is that it is an operationalization of the principles of just financing. So within it, country ownership, development pathways, and governance and everything that comes under them is very much expressed within the platform. As Dina mentioned, we have one big project on energy, which is decommissioning 10 gigawatts of use of gas into renewable both wind and solar. What we have been within the platform, two important points. First, that we updated our nationally determined contributions in June 23, based on our commitment last COP. And the second is we were able to draw in $2 billion of investments in renewables under NWFE, and we did a debt swap with Germany for mitigation. Also, all of this is, I'll show you where you can find all this information, because we did a stock take during the year. And on November 19th in Cairo, with all our partners, we showed what happened on each of the projects. We also have grant components for the energy pillar, which are helping with the decommissioning, which are helping with the grid studies, and also all of this related to green hydrogen. So that is the first pillar, which is energy, and EBRD is our lead partner. But also we have many other bilaterals and multilateral institutions working with us, including the World Bank and many others. If we take a look at the water pillar, African Development Bank is taking the lead, and we have a water desalination project, which the feasibility study, the technical advisory missions have been concluded. So this is also very important. You know that one of the key themes that you will be hearing in many of the pavilions that you attend, the concept of bankable projects, and how can we create the feasibility around the project. So with the water pillar, we are at the stage of the feasibility. The grant component is there. We already have the advisory to actually create the procurement and the bidding for the project. When it comes to the food, then IFAD is our lead partner, and we're very proud of this partnership. IFAD with Egypt has historical ties that deals with small farmers in different parts of Egypt. So it was very natural that IFAD would be our key lead when it comes to the food pillar. And what is very important within the NWFE platform is that you are able to create not just coordination among financiers and development partners, but also among government. So, for example, some of the projects which were water and food, or irrigation and agriculture, we were able to bring and actually consolidate several of the projects. With IFAD, we're putting together a crown project, crown, which looks into Nile Delta and small farmers there, given the statistics which Dina put out. And all of this is also mentioned in detail. I always say that for country platforms to work well, you need to have the commitment from the government, you need to have clarity with respect to the projects, and you need to have credibility with the international community. I will conclude by saying that all of this was published on the 19th of November in a progress report, the first progress report on NWFE. It's on our website. You can check for each project what exactly took place, what has been accomplished, and in terms of acknowledging uh, NWFE as a platform of policy change, a platform where the government has been able to be more ambitious with respect to its NDCs. There was a joint communique that was also published on the 19th of November, acknowledging what we have done as a government, but also renewing everybody's commitment, from the partners, because these projects go on to 2030 and 2035. I'm very happy that NWFE as a platform is being recognized, but also platforms more generally, which are anchored around country ownership, are being repeated here at COP. And we look forward to working with IFAD and our other partners to be able to replicate this in other countries as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rania. Excellency, this just shows what can happen when governments really take the lead. And as Her Excellency said, the country-led platforms are obviously an ingredient for success. As we have just seen, within 1 year, with how much has been achieved, as she has rightly, sort of mentioned all these achievements. And please do go into the site and do look for this information, because there's a wealth of information there, and it's really meticulously speaks to the needs of the government, the needs of the people, and what are the challenging policy and challenging development aspects that every country has to grapple with. And if you don't use this nexus approach, we have found actually from our own experiences that we normally end up having lots of projects, but really the impact is then mostly dispersed. So we are pleased as IFAD to be partnering with the government, but also more importantly, the collaboration space and how that has really come together, which you will be hearing, of course, from our respective panelists. And at the same time, I think we need to also recognize that with our private sector, this will probably not be achievable. So I'm really looking forward to that. So next, we will look at a short video on NWFE. As they say, pictures speak louder than words. So I think this will be a nice segue into then the panel.
اسمي فادية محمد إبراهيم مسعود. دلوقتي الحمد لله بساعد جوزي في مصاريف البيت. أولادي بنعلمهم تعليم حلو. بنتي دخلتها تمريض ثانوي، يعني اتغيرت فرق السما من الأرض.
الطاقة الشمسية فرقت معانا لأن بتوفر لنا في الوقود، وطبعا بيحافظ على البيئة في حتة الانبعاثات وثاني أكسيد الكربون والكلام ده. بالنسبة لري بالتنقيط، وفر لي في الأسمدة والمبيدات وفي معالجة الأرض من أمراض التربة، وعشان نحقن المواد دي غالية، ما ينفعش نحقنها في ري غمر. بس هو لازم إن هو يكون في مصدر مَيّة ثابت عشان الطاقة دي بتشتغل يوميًا، فلازم أنا مصدر للطاقة ثابت، ما يكونش فيه تكلفة عالية.
Egypt's country platform for the Nexus of Water, Food and Energy, pronounced in Arabic as NWFE, which means fulfilling pledges, is a platform which brings together different stakeholders.
NWFE is a flagship program for the government of Egypt and is expected to leverage both public and private sector financing and best practices to support Egypt's plans for a green transition.
بالنسبة لتطوير الري الأشجار أو المحاصيل العقلية بيدي إنتاجية أعلى، عائد مالي كبير، تخفيض في العمالة. بدل ما برش حشائش كل مثلا 15 يوم مرة، أرش في الشهر مرة.
IFAD has proven its capacity as an assembler of finance, and this latest role in leading the food pillar of the NWFE country platform, where it will bring together, of course, on-farm water efficiency, looking at also agricultural productivity and enhancing, of course, agricultural best practices, bringing in digital technologies and also renewable energies as a source of transformation.
أنا مسؤولة هنا عن شبكة الأرصاد في ال3 قريات، بالِف على المزارعين، بادخّل منها البيانات، الرقم القومي، الاسم، رقم التليفون، عنده كام فدان، وباروح مدخّلاهم على الشبكة، بيوصل لهم رسايل إرشادية على الموبايل.
أكتر حاجة استفدنا في التغيرات المناخية اللي هي رسائل الإنذار المبكر، اللي هي كانت الرسالة بتيجي لنا قبلها بيوم، إن أنت مثلًا بكرة في إيه؟ دي طبعًا كانت بتفيدني، أنا كانت بتجيني الرسالة الجو بكرة كذا، وما كنتش باعمله، كنت بأجله أو باشوف له بديل إن أنا كده. هي الرسايل دي اللي كانت نافعانا إحنا في التغيرات المناخية.
Another important aspect of NWFE is that it's a nexus. So the relationship between energy, water, and food is fulfilled, and that's fulfilled because there is geographic distribution across different governorates of Egypt.
The food pillar has 5 projects, and we have already started designing the first one, which is the crown, and it will be covering 8 governorates in Upper Egypt, reaching about 6 million people, 40% of whom are women and 30% are expected to be youth.
المنحة اللي أنا واخداها من إفادة أنا استفدت منها كتير بسبب الندوات اللي كانوا بيعملوا عنها. كنت بربي باسم بربي وخلاص، دلوقتي أنا بحسب لك، يعني مثلا أنا ربيت، أنا وكلت، شربت، لازم أعمل حساب كل حاجة، أعرف أنا صرفت إيه واستفدت إيه ووفرت إيه وبصرف على بيتي بإيه، اللي يطلع من الأرض من الحموم على مخلفات البهايم بنسنده الأرض. أنا ما بحتاجش إن أنا أشتري أي أسمدة من بره.
We talk about climate change, we want to leave no one behind. And leaving no one behind means that small farmers come in as a priority.
There's not been a time when climate action, water, and food security have not been top priorities. And we're urging on global leaders to take action now, because the cost of inaction means we either starve or die. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and I'd like to move straight away into the next speaker, and I would like to invite Dr. Donald Brown to walk us through IFAD's value proposition for climate adaptation projects. Dr. Donald Brown.
Thank you. And I'm going to stand up because if probably like the rest of you, I've been sitting down a lot over the last few days. So it's just nice to stand up, but hopefully you can see me a bit better. So with the comments from Her Excellency in the video, I think I probably don't have an awful lot to add because it's been in there, but maybe just a few personal reflections as well. So from my perspective and from IFAD's perspective, it's very easy when you get strong government ownership and a clear vision to be able to align, and having a platform, as Her Excellency said, brings us all together. So I think, you know, that combination of a country-led platform with strong ownership and drive makes this, for me, a model not only for what's going on in Egypt, but for others to look at, and I'm glad to see that. I think second to that, what I've seen personally is since this was launched at COP27 last year, the progress that has been made over the last year. And as I sit here this year and reflect on where we were and where we've come in such a short space of time at such scale, is really very, very impressive. And I think in the face of the global climate change challenges that we've seen, and particularly for smallholder farmers, who are responsible for a third of the world's food production and are most disproportionately affected with very, very little climate finance. As we saw with recent events in Egypt, such as the delayed wheat season due to El Nino, it underscores the urgency for these sorts of platforms and this sort of leadership. And for those of you that don't know EFAD well, our mandate and our focus is smallholder farmers, smallholder production, and improving the lives of rural communities. And that's what we feel we can do, supporting NWFE and in a holistic way, joining up food, water, energy. So we're very pleased to be part of this process. EFAD has a history of trying to mobilize climate finance. 40% of all our core investments go to adaptation. And on top of that, we have a 300 million program for smallholder adaptation, which is pure grant funding, which allows us to innovate, be creative, and then channel that back into our mainstream investments with government. So since COP27, together, we, the government of Egypt, the development partners, I think have managed to transform the initial 5 projects, as we've heard, into strategically aligned portfolio. And what's really quite exciting is we now have a set of projects that covers Egypt's vast geographical climate challenges, from the salinity that we've seen firsthand in the delta and the sea level rise, through to drought and the water scarcity in the newly reclaimed lands and most vulnerable areas. And what we're trying to achieve here is safeguard food security and livelihoods. And as we saw in the video, the establishment of a nationwide early warning and data management system, and really providing up-to-date weather forecasting to small farmers, I think is really significant. As you've heard both from Her Excellency and Dina, EFAD's contribution is the Crown project, the Climate Resilient On-Farm Water Management in the Nile Valley. And we're currently in design phase and hope that will be live in early 2025. And that will cover about 500,000 fedans and benefit 6 million farmers, particularly in middle Egypt. And it's building on the knowledge and the experience from the EFAD supported government projects over the last few decades. And what we hope we bring is the Crown model integrates various irrigation methods, adaptive agronomic practices, etc. And it provides options and incentives for leveraging financial investments for farmers, but also for agribusinesses. This has to be done, as Dina said, with the private sector, and not just alone. And Crown will be very much demand driven, avoiding a very much top-down process, which specifies crops or irrigation techniques. It will instead, for farmers and agribusinesses, a menu of options designed and built with built-in water efficiencies and productivity enhancements. EFAD's role in the food pillar, as Her Excellency said, in many ways is the fruit of our 40-year partnership with the government, looking at agriculture and food security in Egypt, particularly for smallholder farmers. And so far, through our 14 investments, we've reached 7 million people. And what we hope our partnership does is actually take that experience from those investments and really turns that round to help with the design of the platform. And in that aspect, I think one of the key things we tried to do with EFAD, we're relatively small in terms of the size of our investments, but we try and play a catalytic role in assembling finance and coordinating. I think we're seeing this very much come through in the food pillar with the really strong collaboration with our partners under the government of Egypt's leadership. So with that, I would just like really to congratulate the government for the incredibly strong leadership. Sitting there last year, I never thought we'd be where we are today. And I think that's really testament to the leadership, but also the collaboration along the partners. When I look at the list of those 5 projects and the different agencies involved in the private sector, this is really what we need to see now and in the future. So thank you very much for that. And I really hope others are learning from it.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, and also for outlining and emphasizing IFAD's core mandate, but also giving an overview of the crown design. What I'm so glad to see this is such a full house. Because I guess many of you have come here to learn about NWFE. So think about NWFE as if we're peeling peeling the layers of the onion. You just heard about Crown, and now it gives me great pleasure to give you the next layer of NWFE. So here we come to our next speaker, and that is Ms. Karen Berhane from the World Bank. So here I just want to ask you, over the years, the World Bank has been a global financier for developing countries across various sectors. You are a co-leader with us in the food pillar, and you are designing your own special part of this, food pillar program. Can you tell us what instruments are currently in place to support initiatives like NWFE from the bank? And also, in your opinion, how feasible is it to replicate the NWFE model? Thank you, Ms. Would you like to sit there, or shall we give you the mic?
Here's a mic right here. Yeah, here's a mic.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Dina. It's really a great pleasure to be here together with all our partners. And as you mentioned, I mean, it's so exciting to see how much progress has been made, right? Dr. Rania, when we were at COP27, we had jointly released a study that we had done together, right? The country climate development report that was launched at COP, which really provided a diagnostic of all the key challenges that Egypt faces, and we highlighted the importance of the food and agriculture and water nexus, right? And now we're at the stage of, okay, we're taking these recommendations, we're actually at the step of implementing them. So that's really exciting, and I think it's thanks to your leadership, and we're really excited to be a part of IFAD's and other development partners that are working on this. And what's really unique, I think, about NWFE is that it's, as you said, it's a platform, right? So we have very clear sort of priorities that have been set by the government, but based on diagnostics that has identified both the what are the tools with which we support small holder farmers, and one of those areas was around like data, right? So we don't have enough agromet and meteorological data that is really having a huge impact on the way in which farmers can produce. So having this data will allow decision makers and investors to know how to prioritize it. So that's one of the things that we're investing in, and we know from studies that investing in hydromet actually can increase the agricultural output by up to 10%. So that's one area that we are really engaged in, and really creating platforms also on climate related agricultural information. Another aspect is around improving ag technologies and providing incentives for the private sector to invest in these areas. And then how do you also ensure that there is, financing for smallholders, because with climate change and heat, we know from a study that was recently done by the Central Bank of Egypt, actually the amount of loans going to smallholder farmers is actually decreasing, and by about something like 50%, right? So having specific targeted support to the financial sector, the banking sector, that will allow them to anticipate and provide support to smallholder farmers is also an important instrument. So that's another area where we're contributing to this financing. And the final thing I'd say is around innovation and the innovation lab, especially working with smart tech and encouraging young people to come up with innovative ideas for smallholder agricultural experts would be another area. And I think around research and development also on seed technology, that's another area where we're providing support, and we hope that will provide further incentives for the private sector to actually invest in agriculture. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kate. I just love this panel. They're just straight to the point. They're giving us all the elements what we need to hear. And really, the World Bank has been one of our staunch collaborators, partners. And as you heard from Ms. Berhane, this is really something where we all have a mission. We believe that we need to bring together our comparative advantages to really make the NWFE platform succeed. So with that now, let's shift from the multilateral development partners and the regular conventional partners and move to the private sector. So here, there's a growing call for increased participation. I will move down to our next. So there's a growing call for increased private sector participation to enhance climate resilience, productivity, and sustainability of food systems. But the private sector is usually very hesitant to work on the agricultural space. So I'd like to ask PepsiCo now, represented by Mr. Abdul Karim. How do you think PepsiCo can respond to this expanding need for private sector engagement in the agricultural sector? What valuable lessons have been learned? Because you have been working, and we heard the other day from Dr. Williamson, the CEO, that PepsiCo is very active in this space. So, what have you learned from this? And what advice would you offer governments to be able to structure better private sector incentive plans? So, over to you.
Thanks, Dina. Really appreciated being part of the panel. So as not all the people know, but PepsiCo is 60% food, right? We work in snacks business globally. So we grow our crops. We grow potatoes, corn, oats, and even sometimes wheat in other countries, like in South Africa, for example. We have our own strategy, which is called PepsiCo Positive, which is basically integrating sustainability as an essential part and core into our operations. So it's like from the growing the crops up until the packaging and beyond. This COP is very historical because it has the regenerative agricultural practices and the regenerative landscape at the core of it. So, for example, yesterday there was the launching of the COP28 action on regenerative landscape, where actually we were showcasing the work that we do with our partners across the globe, like in the US or in other countries like in Brazil, or showcasing how we as partners can work together, having all the work that we are doing across the value chain as farmer-centric. Because what we see is that there is need for innovative collaboration. We need to break through the noise with partnerships that are really meaningful, that are farmer-centric, that are that brings innovative financing as well for small holder farmers, especially. And this is how we see that the role of private sector can help in programming these kind of initiatives. So, for example, we have a program in Egypt. So in Egypt, our footprint is like we have like 4 plants. We're growing about 40,000 fadans together with 5,000 farmers, either directly or indirectly. So we have a big footprint when it comes to agriculture in Egypt. We have 2 programs that are focusing on farmers. We have one that is the normal business, let's say, alleviating livelihood for the farmers that we're working with. The first phase is like for we're working with like 700 farmers as the first phase, and this is continuing, and because this is part of our sustainability program. And the second one is funded by the PepsiCo Foundation and implemented by CARE International. It's a global program run in 6 countries with about $18 million, but for Egypt, the component is like 3.6. It has been running since 2019, and it's focusing on empowering female farmers. It's running in 4 governorates in Giza, Bahira, Minya, and Beni Suef. So it's across the Delta and Upper Egypt as well. The program will end in 2024. The results are remarkable because first, we have more than 400,000 participants within the program. 70,000 are direct participants, and indirect are the rest are indirect that are benefiting from it. You have about 14,000 women are participating in VSLAs, which is kind of like crowdfunding mechanism, which is very innovative. And actually, out of this program, 10 women farmers were able to lease a land, grow potatoes, and supply it to our supply chain. And actually, they were recognized by the President of Egypt, His Excellency Abdel Fattah Sisi, last year at the Summit for NGOs, for Egyptian NGOs. And this shows how the private sector can work together with the public sector, because this is also like a program that was done in collaboration with the Ministry of Social Solidarity as well. And actually, I mean, when Dina was, she told me about NWFE last year in COP27, we were very eager to be part of the program, to see what we can do together. We've been participating in a lot of missions for Craft and Crown as well. So we're trying to see by next year is like the programming year, how we can participate, if we can, let's say, evolve our programs into something that can be a meaningful partnership together with the government. And this is how we see our role in NWFE future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kareem. And actually, for those of you who in the room who can tell me what is the tagline for PepsiCo, they promised to give you a year's supply for free. So I guess you're off the hook on this one. Now let's move back to the multilateral space, and I'm really pleased to introduce our next panelist, Mr. Saeed Hussein Qadri, from the Islamic Development Bank. And you heard from the private sector about farmer-centric projects. Can you tell us how the Islamic Development Bank's experience in making climate adaptation programs more bankable? And also, how does IDB empower farmers and agribusinesses to adapt to climate change? And what is your foreseen collaboration with the government of Egypt under NWFE? I know those are quite a few.
Well, thank you, Drina. I really appreciate that. Those are excellent questions. We'll get to private sector. I just wanted to zoom out a little bit from NWFE for a moment and touch upon a couple of points that Minister Rania was mentioning. So if you were to follow some of the debate which is going on within the multilateral development bank sphere and IFI reform, one of the primary items is that how would these development institutions reform themselves? And what sort of support do they need? One aspect of it, which is unanimously and consistently coming across, is on coordination and harmonization and working together so we avoid this situation where meager resources get split up between different IFIs into various different streams. And I really want to commend Egypt's leadership in coming up with the country platform approach. In fact, it was almost a precursor to what eventually came through in yesterday's MDB statement. The joint statement talks about in-country led platforms for impact. And one of the primary examples that all of us are using are Egypt's example of the NWFE program with IFAD and EBRD and of course other development institutions such as ISDB also partnering with that. I think that's a terrific way to approach to bring about sustainable change and a country-led change, which is not easy to do so in these testing times. This is not only successful in a couple of pilot areas, but we're actually trying to expand this country platform approach also in Bangladesh, in Macedonia, in Kenya, in Mozambique. So we will now see different activities, how it's coming through with that. Now, coming a little bit specifically now to the NWFE program itself, really pleased to see some of the videos, Dina, and some of the work that is happening on the food pillar. ISDB, I understand, is also already in advanced conversations with regards to in water and energy pillars as well. We look forward to supporting those projects. I think we're looking at around 5 or 6 different projects from ISDB's perspective. And these would be really important for us as well, because we have a flagship $10.54 billion program on food security response program that we launched last year at around COP27. But that was the program was driven to make sure that we not only reflect and change some of the short-term challenges that the food security crisis is coming up is facing, but also the structural determinants of food security. Since last year, in the first year of its operations, we've already approved nearly $3.2 billion worth of programs. And these are not only the public sector institutions of ISDB, public sector lending arm of ISDB, but also the private sector, ITFC and ICD and elsewhere as well. Egypt has, I think, I believe, has already worked with ITFC on some of those food security programs. We already have approved projects which are going to be hopefully providing and sustaining the livelihoods of around 780,000 farmers, nearly 11 million people. And this will only keep on growing from here onwards. Private sector collaboration and looking at innovative sources of financing, to answer your question on adaptation, it remains one of the primary focus areas of ISDB. We have a very ambitious target of around 35% of climate financing to make sure that all our interventions are aligned with that. We are already at 33%. And of the climate financing, we make sure that 60 to 65% of it is geared towards carbon. So that is really high up on our agenda. And the last point that I leave you with is finding diverse sources of financing wherever we can find it, particularly from new areas such as even sukuk raising as such. We've recognized that there is an appetite in the market from the treasury side, especially that we've been able to raise around $5 billion worth of sukuk over the last 3 years. And they're all geared towards renewable energy projects, adaptation projects. So there are potentials, there are good stories out there. We need to find that connecting type of program like NWFE to scale that up. That's what I'll leave with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And really great to see all these innovations, but also financing instruments and possibilities that we could also work together with, and as we're working in this space. And I think Islamic finance hasn't been quite discussed very much. So I think this is also a new area that we can also look at, especially when you look at the farmers and the type of context that we're working in. So great to hear there's a possibility for that. Now, we do have our final speaker from the private sector again. And but we're focusing, as we've been doing, on the food pillar, but also the nexus is about water, food, energy. And Mr. Mohammed Al Damardash, who is the CEO of Ingazat, you have been working on clean water and energy. Can you tell us how you see your business model contributing to small scale farmers? And also, can you also tell us how do you address the challenges that you see presented by this nexus?
Thank you very much, Dina, for the invitation and for everything. I'm going to start where did we found in Gazette in 2011 from very basic assumptions that in Egypt, 95% of the water supply is coming from the River Nile. 80% of the water consumption is happening in the agro space. And farming makes 25% of the employment, basically. And second assumption is that when we talk about energy and water, they are by design integrated. So energy is the source of water and makes 50% of the water cost. Water cost makes 50% of the agro. And the nexus is the real thing on the ground. Energy, water, and agriculture, they are inseparable. The second assumption is that the world is moving right now in the utility space. Technology is delivering on decentralized architecture when it comes to infrastructure, with energy and water. Now we can pin anywhere in the desert and make it green. So that is something the technology and the world has delivered on. The third basic fundamental questions we started on that why do we are still insist to teach farmers what they need to do? Maybe it's time to listen to maybe what can we help with. I mean, maybe they can teach us what is required to do that. And I guess nature has been so generous with them all along the process to deliver all what they want for thousands of years doing farmers. So maybe that's the time to respond to that instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and having technology as an end rather than a destination, rather than a mechanism. So we deliver basically clean tech as a service. That's the promise we deliver to agro farming community, to smallholder farmers, that they all what they need to do is they don't really need to be tech savvies, investment banking savvies, engineering savvies to deliver on the basic requirement for them to make food production. Maybe we need to deliver that as a service. They just subscribe and pay as you go, pay what they consume. And that's the business model we delivered on. And that gained lots of traction all along the process. The flagship was a $10 million project that we are seeing its pictures right now in the background, delivering water that's able to sustain a whole city of 1 million population, energy that's equivalent to around 1.5 million trees all over the project lifetime. It's basically sustainable power for water for smart irrigation systems, and that's being delivered. This portfolio now in Engazet is around $17 million of investment, and all what is needed now that we need to take this assumption that farming is one business, utility is another business. So farmers, they do not really care how this is happening. They want it done. And the good news about the challenges the world is facing on climate right now is that it is delivering on the economical narrative of sustainability. Sustainability 10 years when we started the company was an environmental narrative. Now, with the rising fossil fuel prices, with water security issues, with food challenges that's happening from the disturbance of the supply chain, food has a price. That's able to ignite a lot of investment into the utility space. Now, this portfolio is 40% of which is from foreign direct investment. This was able to de-risk the sector through main three things: contractual farming at the back end of the value chain, uh, the separation between utility and farming business, and last but not least is that we need to make it easy. That's what we think, and that's how it happened, and that's our next generation of project. We call it Save 2 in Moghram Marsa Matruh for solar power for desalination, for smart irrigation. This is the biggest desalination plant for irrigation purposes in whole Africa, and we're signing its investment agreement here with COP with Norwegian and British investments. So if you don't mind, Nina, I would just play a video for this second project, just 1 minute. Yeah.
We have the video, please. Thank you very much for that. And really, I mean, as you can see, it's not just the international partners and the multinationals that are excited and passionate about this. It's, it gives me really warms my heart to see when the national partners, a national company, private sector is totally engaged, driving a driving force in all of this. Of course, with the leadership of the government, and you can't have a better dream. So really, congratulations. Thank you all for your collaboration. I want to give the floor for one question, please, because we are running out of time. Okay, so one already quickly raises a hand because we will have the closing remarks from Her Excellency. So one question. I'm sorry, I'm sure many of you have questions, but you can forward them to us and we'll be happy to respond. So please, there's a mic here.
Thank you, Dina. I was actually in NEN, the NEN division, and I witnessed the very first discussion about NOAFI. And then I left NEN, and I'm so amazed to see the progress, how far you've gone. So, Excellency, congratulations for the vision, the ownership, and also the ambition. The ambition is big, really congratulations for it. I have 2 points. Referring to similar initiatives in the past, many years ago on the continent, we realized that actually one of the challenge was how to bring the donors to drop their individual procedures and align around an harmonized procedure to deliver, to have effectiveness. How is NOAFI trying to addressing actually this challenge? The second, to avoid, of course, donor fatigue and so on. The second, there is a report from FAO suggested that on the continent, only 21% of the resources in the food and agricultural sector is effectively dispersed, absorbed. How is NOAFI anticipating on this challenge? Because they say it is not absorbed basically because of issues of slow disbursement in the PMUs, the project implementation unit. How is NOAFI anticipating on this challenge?
Okay. So Bernard, you would need another panel to respond to those, but I see her.
I can do it on the.
Okay, so Her Excellency now will give her closing remarks and welcome, please.
Thank you so much. Can I just ask? Thanks. Yeah, great. Maybe just to respond to the two questions. I hate to use the word donor. I always use development partner because when you use development partner, we're both of us trying to achieve our individual goals, but add to the global goals. So that's something extremely important. What has happened with respect to the different development partners in the platform? We have a history with all of them. EFAD, a long-term relationship, EBRD, World Bank, and so forth. And really, this relationship of trust has made us able to decipher the governance of each of them and bring more than one partner in one project. We've seen this in Egypt in our transportation projects, in many of our agriculture projects, in the solar plants projects, if we take Bimban as an example. So this history of being able to collate more than one partner on one project, to me, I always say that Egypt provides a very good example of how multilateralism can actually work. That many partners work together on a similar project despite their governance. What we have done, and I mentioned governance in my opening remarks, is to create a coordinated platform to bring all of this together. We have in Egypt a Ministry of International Cooperation, which I'm honored to lead, and we are able to coordinate across government and also across all development partners. And this facilitates a lot of your concern or your question in terms of that. In terms of the PMU units and the disbursements and all of that, we also, part of our job is the monitoring. And we have a portfolio of official development assistance of close to $26 billion. And we monitor close to 288 projects on a quarterly basis. Even if a project is not dispersing or is late in dispersing, we know exactly why, and we try to address why it's not. So this is also, a very a practical way of moving forward. So I don't know if I answered those two questions, but what I wanted to conclude is country platforms seem to be, two very simple words. There's a lot of human labor and power that goes into it. It requires a clear vision. It requires also an elevated discussion across different ministries within the government. Today, NDCs is no longer a technical term, it's a very practical term. Every ministry, whether it's agriculture, it's irrigation, it's finance, social solidarity, everybody is talking about how to achieve the global goals, how to achieve the different SDGs, and how all of this ties to climate. So there needs to be a disseminated cross-country approach. NWFE provides this holistic also approach, the link between projects. But very, very important is that these platforms are platforms for policy change, because government needs to take, in many cases, policy updates. If we are, for example, today giving incentives for green private sector engagement, if we are providing certain elements related to the green hydrogen so that the renewable can actually be exported. So there's a policy element which is related to the platform, and there's also a practice which is related to the platform. So the country platform is really a platform for policy and practice. And this is something that we are trying to, we've emphasized, we've reiterated, and we want to say that and showcase that NWFE has worked, and therefore it can work in other places as well. I want to thank all our partners. I want to thank the private sector. PepsiCo is here. You're doing great work in Egypt for years with small farmers. IFAD the same. In Gazette, I look forward to partnering with you going forward. But the concept is multi-stakeholder approach is extremely important. Government cannot do it on its own. The international community needs trust with the government. Private sector NGOs are implementing agencies in different way, and all of this concessional finance is really to crowd in private sector, even the technical assistance and capacity building. So it's a very I'm very proud that Egypt has been able to put this out there, and also seeing at COP28 country platforms being repeated as a solution to be able to implement climate finance. Brings us great pleasure, and we look forward to, as I mentioned, partnering with IFAD and others to transport or export this experience to other countries through South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation. So thanks again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for those concluding remarks. And as I think everybody in this room will not forget what NWFE stands for in the country platform. So here, just as before we depart, a last video that would remain in your minds as you go away, thinking about NWFE. So please, can we have the video just to conclude? Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I think we are all now converts of NWFE, so let's NWFE together and fulfill these pledges. And I really thank you all. I want a round of applause for our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much for your insights and experiences. Thank you. Thank you.